Ash drifts across a lifeless savanna, not just dust in the air, but memory carried by the wind. A child kneels by the cracked skin of a dried lake bed, brushing her fingers against something brittle, ancient, bone. She doesn't know it, but she's touching a ghost of a world that almost wasn't. Before the first kings or gods, before writing or war, there was a moment that nearly erased us from existence, not through battle or plague, but through silence and ash. A catastrophe so complete, its victims left no myths, no monuments, only bloodlines and whispers etched in our DNA. And so the real question isn't merely what was humanity's first crisis. The deeper question is, why did we survive it when everything said we shouldn't have? What force pushed us to the brink? And what did that moment leave behind, buried not in the earth, but in who we became?
74,000 years ago, on an island now called Sumatra, the Earth convulsed in fire. The Toba supervolcano erupted with such unimaginable force that nearly 3,000 cubic kilometers of ash shot into the atmosphere. The skies darkened, global temperatures dropped, the sun all but disappeared. Across the continents, ecosystems collapsed in silence. Rainfall ceased, vegetation died, animals perished, and Homo sapiens, already fragile and scattered, were brought to the edge. According to some scientists, this marked the beginning of the human bottleneck, a near-extinction event that reduced our population to a few thousand. Perhaps just hundreds of families clung to life as the world spiraled into a volcanic winter. But there's a paradox. Archaeological evidence from places like India, Africa, and even regions near Toba show human presence during and after the eruption, signs not of collapse, but of resilience. If humanity thrived in the aftermath, then perhaps Toba wasn't the death blow we thought. And if it wasn't the volcano, then what did nearly drive us extinct? We may not remember it consciously, but our bodies do. Hidden deep within our genes is a strange silence, a lack of diversity that echoes a time when humanity nearly disappeared. Modern humans, despite living across vast continents and thousands of cultures, are genetically far more similar than they should be. Geneticists call this a bottleneck, a period when the human population shrank so dramatically, only a small group passed their DNA forward. Some estimates suggest as few as 1,000 breeding pairs remained. Imagine a species, our species, reduced to the population of a village. The causes are debated. Perhaps it was Toba. Perhaps it was climate chaos, starvation, isolation, or disease. Perhaps it was a chain reaction, many pressures converging at once. But whatever the cause, the signal is clear. Humanity passed through a terrifyingly narrow gate in time, and somehow, against the odds, we emerged. But how? And why us? To answer that, we journey south, along Africa's storm-lashed coast, into caves carved by wind and wave. At Blombos, Sibudu, and Pinnacle Point, archaeologists found traces of something extraordinary. Beads made from seashells, etched with careful holes. Pieces of red ochre marked with abstract designs. Tools shaped from bone and heat-treated stone. These weren't the marks of desperation. These were signs of innovation, of culture. Picture a woman huddled by a coastal fire, her child wrapped in furs, the air outside bone-dry and deadly. In the glow of the flames, she threads beads into a necklace, not for food, not for shelter, but for meaning. These early humans, cornered by drought and surrounded by predators, did something remarkable. They turned to the sea. They adapted their diets, innovated new tools, shared ideas. While much of the world withered, they created. It was not just survival, it was transformation. But if we found a way forward, why didn't others? At the time of our near extinction, Homo sapiens were not alone. Neanderthals hunted mammoth in Ice Age Europe. Denisovans lived in the mountains of Asia. Homo erectus still wandered the forests of Southeast Asia. Even tiny Homo floresiensis, the so-called hobbit, inhabited the jungles of Indonesia. For thousands of years, these species lived parallel to us. But within a short span of time, they vanished. Gone from the fossil record, gone from the earth, leaving only shadows in our DNA. Some interbred with us, yes, but they did not continue. Why? Some blame climate. Others argue that Homo sapiens outcompeted them. But perhaps it was something deeper. Perhaps our own crisis forced us to evolve, not just physically, but culturally. Perhaps in the crucible of collapse, we became the first to tell stories, to mourn, to believe, and that may have made all the difference. What followed the bottleneck was not just survival, it was revelation. We began to bury our dead with red ochre and grave goods. We carved flutes from the bones of birds. We left handprints on stone walls, marking time, marking presence. In a cave, a child is buried. On her small skull, red pigment is brushed like a prayer. We don't know why, but we know it meant something. This was the beginning of ritual, of memory, of meaning beyond the moment. Perhaps for the first time we asked, what happens after death? Perhaps for the first time we imagined a world beyond the visible. This was the origin not just of art, but of belief. And it all emerged not from peace, but from pressure. The greatest beauty of our species was born beside hunger, death, and fear. But why then? What was it about that moment that unlocked the soul? When scientists today study endangered species, they find a pattern. As populations shrink, behaviors change. Creativity fades. Social bonds weaken. Extinction accelerates. But Homo sapiens defied that fate. As our numbers dwindled, our minds expanded. We imagined, remembered, taught, warned. Not just fire, but stories around fire. And now, some scholars believe there wasn't just one crisis, not Toba, not a single drought, but many. Climate swings, disease, isolation, colliding in sequence, a polycrisis. And it was this convergence that changed us. It wasn't the end of the world that forged us. It was standing at the edge, again and again, and choosing to go forward.
Today, we are everywhere, billion strong, armed with satellites and science. But once again, we feel the tremors. Climate change, ecological collapse, misinformation, loneliness. It feels familiar, doesn't it? Not just because it's dangerous, but because it's ancient. The same conditions that nearly broke us once are rising again. But this time, we carry memory. We carry maps. We carry data, systems, warnings. The question is, will we listen to them? Or will we repeat the cycle, forgetting what nearly destroyed us, until we're forced to remember all over again?
Imagine a thread, fragile, trembling, spanning tens of thousands of years. That thread held the fate of our species. If just a few more clans had vanished, if one more drought had lasted a season longer, there would be no cities, no languages, no music, no us. But that thread didn't break. Someone fished in a stormy sea. Someone told a story beside a fire. Someone taught a child how to shape a tool. That's why we're here. The first real crisis didn't just test our strength, it tested our imagination. And it proved something powerful, that brilliance is born in pressure, that meaning is forged from fear, and that hope is a human invention.
Now the darkness returns. The skies are hotter. The waters rise. The future is uncertain again. But we are not the same species we were. We have memory. We have myth. We have the fire still burning in us. Our ancestors faced extinction, and from it created culture. They looked into the void and responded not with silence, but with stories. And that is what we must remember. We are not here because we were the strongest. We are not here because we were the smartest. We are here because someone, 74,000 years ago, refused to give up. And from their courage came everything.